So if that sounds interesting to you, or you want to hear somebody get an NC-17 rating on a podcast, come check me out. I'll drop the link.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Jeremiah's J-Man Speak. Jeremiah's J-Man Monero with J-Man Speaks. Welcome to 18 Friday. We're coming to you live. That's right. We're coming to you live with Ask the Experts Anything Meaningful Friday. We have a special guest with us today. He's known as the swearing attorney. Listen, if you have kids in the room, what I want you to do first is put the earmuffs on the kids, okay? Because this broadcast will be rated NR-17 for adults only. but we are talking about serious topics that affect real estate and homeowners all across the United States. So let me bring in our special guest today. We're going to unmute him first. Boom. And then there we go. Mr. Veitengruber. Welcome.
Hey, man.
Welcome.
How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
Living the dream every day.
Oh, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. So we met a couple weeks ago and doing like a live broadcast role play kind of thing, which was really awesome. And I'm New York, you're New Jersey, but we're kind of like in the same industry. It was like this, like, oh, what do you do? Oh, real estate. Oh, okay, short sales, perfect. So with those who are watching for the first time with Ask the Experts Anything, what we try to do is bring an expert on with us most of the time and talk about something meaningful to the real estate industry, to homeowners, to buyers, to sellers. And you're like, well, short sales, like why are we talking about short sales today? Because we're bringing a specialist in. So George, why don't you just give him like a little bit of your background, where you're from, company, and what you guys do there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an attorney in New Jersey. That's that small state below New York that people leave. When they leave New York, they retire to New Jersey before heading to Florida. So this is your midlife crisis, get out of the city spot. I've been an attorney for 16 years. I've had my own practice for the last 11, and we focus on bankruptcy, real estate, and foreclosure defense. As y'all might have remembered, there was this little thing called the recession in 2007 through 14, maybe still. And our job became how to give power back to our clients and let them try to control their decisions rather than hide in the dark, pretend the boogeyman was going to go away. And a lot of times what we had was people that bought those houses at the height of the market. They lost that equity in the home, but they had refied it to the max, took every dollar, enjoyed their vacations, paid off their bills. And suddenly they were left with this empty bag that was $100,000 underwater and wondering, what do I do about it? And the decisions become really simple. It's a personal decision for everybody that's trying to figure out what to do. Maybe my kids are still in the school system and I want to hold on to it. Maybe the monthly payment is cheap enough that it's the equivalent or cheaper than renting an apartment. So I might as well stay and hope the equity comes back. Or this is a mess. I'd rather hit the reset button. And in cases like that, what you and I both know, Jay, is short sales have a higher failure rate than a regular deal. In a regular deal, somebody's got equity, somebody's got money, transactions happen after a bit of negotiating, and you're good. But on a short sale, we're dealing with the banks, we're dealing with a bank that's going to take a hit, we're dealing with homeowners that have to understand in order to have that, the process is just as invasive as a mortgage. You're providing financials and tax returns and bank statements and all that shit to help convince the bank that they should take a discount in order to get you out of the home. And because of that, liens on the houses and sewer liens, IRS, all that other stuff, people need somebody that knows what they're doing to negotiate it, or they're going to fuck it up.
The first F-bomb. Boom, everybody. You got it. Had to get that out of the way. Well, let's say this because everybody's like, well, the market is booming right now.
Yeah, sure.
And here's, we try to get ahead of things and predict where it's headed, because I've been in real estate since 2005. So I was around 2007 when we were like, oh my gosh, you have a pulse? Yeah, you could get a mortgage, mortgage for your dog too. Sure, we can do all that. And then when it all crashed, that's kind of, it's probably hard to read in my shirt, but it says, you're real estate superheroes. That's kind of where our tagline came in, where we were helping distressed homeowners. In that time, you had to do stuff you weren't used to doing, or you were going to get out of the business, right? I mean, it wasn't like, you get a mortgage, I'll sell you anything, and everything was selling off. It really went like somebody flipped a switch overnight. And I know, in New York and many of the other judicial states, it's hard, right? I mean, title and judicial sometimes is makes a difference. Of course, I think it's Texas or somewhere like that where they can foreclose on you in 2 months.
Virginia,
yeah, compared to New York, I think the average is something along the lines of almost 5 years.
Yeah. So can I back up to
Yeah.
the potentially uneducated in the audience?
Yep.
So judicial state, it's very relevant to New York and New Jersey. What that means is in order for the lender to take back your home, they have to go through the court system. And in 2004, 2005, people didn't know what a short sale was. They hadn't heard of that. And they didn't really have loan modifications either. These all became recession mechanisms to help people get out from under homes. And in New Jersey, the typical judicial foreclosure back in 2010 really was taking 5 years. And before COVID, we were probably down to the average one taking about 12 months. There's other tricks and toys. That's actually where my practice grew, is figuring out ways to keep people in houses longer if that's what they wanted. But it brings a really good point. New York has the exact same policy as New Jersey. If you're sitting up against the situation, I like to tell people, don't duck your head in the sand. Don't be an
Right.
ostrich about it. Be proactive. We do free consults in New Jersey. I'm sure there are New York attorneys that might do the same. The goal is to know your options so you can make an informed decision rather than let the courts and the sheriff make an informed decision for you.
Right.
So with that much time, the more time you give us to help you prepare and plan, the better chance you're going to get the outcome you actually want.
So let's say this, because this is kind of what I'm thinking. Um, we're going through the pandemic. People were laid off. People couldn't work. People were getting unemployment, and their friends say, "Oh, you know what? Do the forbearance. It's fine. It's fine. You'll be able to pay that off. Let's talk. Let's define what that is." And then, because I think right about now, or like let's say last month or whenever, I think end of August, that unemployment ran out, and people are then saying, "Oh wow, I couldn't pay it then. I can't pay it now, but now it's 10 times what it was."
Right. So the good news about these COVID-related forbearances is many of those lenders have now continued it. So the federally backed lenders, some were giving 12 months at the jump. All the private lenders, most of the private larger lenders were giving 6 months at the jump because we didn't know what this is. And unfortunately, now it's 7 months later, and some of those guys have said, all right, well, it's time to deal with your thing. And others have come back and said, do you want another 3 months? We've told our clients from the beginning, we understand your desire to be conservative and squirrel away as much money as possible. But if your circumstances haven't changed, don't take advantage of this as a mechanism to just put that money away, because it's going to come due. I also like to tell people on a balancing part, right? This isn't just about real estate. If you're lucky, your mortgage is sitting at 4% or below.
Right.
And when we came into this, 6% in 2006 sounded pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But right now, if you're sitting above 2.9, people are like, what the hell is wrong with you? If you've got a rate that low, but you've got 50 grand of credit cards at 20% because you needed that as the get by because your husband got let go because of COVID, your wife got let go, somebody got sick. Well, you should be addressing the interest on those credit cards before you should be addressing the mortgage. I'd take that forbearance if it meant you were going to figure out how to get rid of half that debt in credit cards, because the interest alone, 50,000 at 20%. I'm a Rain Man at numbers. That's $830 a month of interest that is burning through your pocket and giving you zero benefit. It is fucking up your life. And if you can get rid of that debt, now I can get you stability. And that's what an attorney that can look at the big picture is helpful for.
Yeah, I mean, and it's such a good point. Like, you specialize at helping them. Like, okay, don't worry about your house right now, your mortgage. We can handle that part of it and make sure that there isn't that many negative consequences. But let's focus on this that has 20, 23, 23 point, whatever, the all the way up to the top, And like you said, you're paying $830 a month. That does nothing.
Nothing.
That does nothing. Your principal stays where it's at. Whatever you owe on it stays right where it's at, and you're just paying off the interest. And And I can tell you, when COVID hit, I have an American Express card, and they were like,
Yeah.
great news, great news. We understand that in these tough
Pay it later.
times.
Pay it later.
No, they went like this. There is an app that we have that will make it easier to pay your bill. I was like, that's what you're offering me. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yo, so I have the business and everything funnels through my American Express too, because I fell in love with their point system.
Right. The Delta one.
Fancy restaurants and fancy travel and all this fancy shit that we can't do right now. But I accumulate those points, and Amex told me, they're like, we'll give you a pay it later deferment. You can string it out for 90 days, just paying the minimum without paying it off every month. No worries. And I funnel everything through that card. I found out that you could put bankruptcy petition fees on that card. So $10,000 a month of business debt going through the card is norm. And all of a sudden I woke up in July and I was like, what the fuck did I just do? I have 40,000 on this card that I got to go knock out because I was worried about holding on to money. And guess what, guys? That means I was fucking myself with my own interest that was getting me nowhere. So I paid it off immediately. I felt that COVID was over. It was time to wake up, get out of that fog, and address the financial elephant in the room.
Well, you could take a couple plane trips at least, right?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. with a mask and the full Kevlar suit.
Yeah.
I look like the guy from Outbreak right now, or the guy from Breaking Bad. It depends if you need a side hustle.
Right. Well, let's, when with the last crash, 2008, 2009, to kind of get back to that, I remember when we would meet with homeowners and they'd say, like, here's what we owe. And I'm like, well, here's what I can sell it for. Maybe they're underwater. Just kind of define what a short sale is. And I think we're going to see more and more of this, because as I talk to different agents all across the country, everybody's like, their market's like this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, multiple offers. And look, I'm in Rochester, New York. Our median sale price is $154,000.
Jesus.
I sold one a few weeks ago. It was $159,900, and we accepted an offer for $193,000, and it appraised. So I don't see how that can keep going. We're starting to see just a little bit of a shift as school went. Some of the prices are kind of balancing out. Stuff isn't, we're talking days on market now, not hours on market like we used to. And so I think that's going to come back. It has to in the next year or two, when people want to sell and they're like, well, I paid 50 over asking on a $200,000 house. What do you mean I can't sell it now that the market's settled down?
The mindset we have with that right now in New Jersey, it's still a minutes on market kind of scenario. And I think that's based on population density issues. Right. A lot of people trying to get out of New York City were looking at spots in North Jersey, so they still were within their commute into work. A lot of those people in North Jersey, Hudson County, Jersey City, Hoboken, those guys start coming down to the Jersey Shore because they want a yard. They want a little, like, not on top of each other.
Right.
And that's where my practice is. So we're still hot. And we blew through the beginning of the school year with that hotness. And I don't see the end in sight probably for the rest of the year. But pivoting back to that whole short sale thing, look, if you're buying a house over ask and quote unquote it appraises now because of that hot market, when this market normalizes next year, 2022, whenever they decide interest rates are not going to be 2.5 anymore, you might be in that house for a long time. And if your goal is to stay in that community and you've got young kids and they want to be in that community, don't worry about it, because eventually that house might pay you off. But if you're buying it for investment purposes, if you're buying it and think you have a 3 to 5 year plan, be careful how over ask you go, because you might be sitting on it. And that's the problem.
Right. And when people would come to us during that time and say, well, we're short, I can tell you initially I tried to work. I'm a guy, look, extrovert, ADHD. I don't have patience for much. And a short sale requires diligence and patience over time that I did not possess. I was like, this isn't for me. I can't call this guy every day. Like, did you get this? Did you get that? Follow up, put loan numbers on every single piece of paper that was, faxing over at the time to these folks to get them what they needed. So I think if you do encounter something like this at that time, I had one guy in my office that was like the sloth at the DMV. You know what I mean? Like every day, hi, Bank of America. Yeah, just following up on the get all my referrals, all of them. I don't want to do this. So he became the short sale guy in the office. And so you specialize in this, right? I mean, you have a team of.
Right. So I've got a team of 8 that work with me. It's me, it's one other attorney, and then it's 6 full-time support staff and 1 part-timer. And our job is we all stay within our own lanes. I've got 2 assistants in the foreclosure department, 2 in the bankruptcy department, 2 in real estate department. My real estate paralegal has been doing this for 25 years, which is remarkable because, that means I was in high school when she started it. Her assistant has been negotiating short sales for us for almost the last 5 years. And anybody that does that thankless call of sitting on hold for an hour and a half with Wells Fargo, waiting for them to just say, well, we don't have an update for you, knows what kind of bullshit that is. And the reason we started doing it is because it gave us more control of the situation, and it took that burden off of the realtors. You guys, all you want to do is show people houses, negotiate the contracts, get them involved, and facilitate towards closing.
Right.
If your job becomes sitting on hold, you can't do that. And we were in an office anyway. When you're sitting on hold and you've got a computer in front of you, you're multitasking most of it.
Right.
And the whole purpose of doing all 3 of those areas is it's about distress. We do regular real estate too. We do some happy, fun things too. But some clients need to strip out the debt in a bankruptcy in order to save their house. Some clients, and I'll tell that story eventually, some clients, they don't want to do a short sale, but they don't know that they have other options. So that's when we talk about loan modification and what it looks like to try to save the house. And some clients are like, fuck this, I'm moving down to South Carolina. My kid graduates in May. How can you get me out of here around May? So let's plan accordingly on the calendar. And having a holistic approach, having a team that can make sure transition seamlessly. If you had to go to 3 different attorneys to do that, you'd bang your head in the wall too, because I mean, we're oh so fun to talk to.
Yeah, not everybody's as fun as you, George. So it's good to know, in real estate, we like to sit down with our clients, really see the question that I ask in every interview. It's like, what matters to you most, right? It's like, you're underwater. Do you really want to stay here? Because if so, then we can help you do that. Do you want to make the move? We can help you do that. What we don't want you to do is, like you said in the beginning, is, put your head in the sand and think at some time this is going to take care of itself, and just keep ignoring everything, all the correspondence that you're getting, and thinking it's going to, everything's going to be all right now. It's not going to happen.
In 2013, we used to be able to run to the Chancery Judge's chambers an hour before the sheriff's sale and say, Your Honor, my client would like to enter mediation. Give us a chance. And just by making that statement, they would postpone the sheriff's sale for a year. And then they got wise to that gimmick. And they changed the regulations, I think in 2014, maybe 2015. And they said, enough of this bullshit. You're not going to get away with that move. Start filing answers early. And if you want mediation, you had to start asking for mediation within the first 60 days that a suit was filed against you, which meant people needed to start opening their mail and not pretend the problem went away. But I'll tell you, our pivot was now 30 minutes before the sheriff's sale, instead of saying, Mr. Judge, please help me, well, then you file a bankruptcy instead. Some people don't want to hear that word. It's a scary word. It's a lot more than 4 letters, but people would rather cut off their arm than deal with bankruptcy, unless they understood sometimes bankruptcy is not about stripping the debt. It's about restructuring the mortgage and saving your house. Plenty of my clients walk into a bankruptcy right when they were about to lose the house and wind up saving it. And that's a tool that the moment you file, there's an automatic stay put in place. So the sheriff's sale cannot proceed as long as you have proof of filing. So you better believe I have the fax number of the sheriff on speed dial. So the second I have a case number, it goes to them and they go, all right, sales off for now.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and it's such a negative connotation, I think, in the history of our world, where like bankruptcy, no, not doing that, no way. Okay, well, would you rather lose your house? And then, I've had people from 2008, 2009 that have done bankruptcies, that have had a foreclosure, or that have had a short sale, that have now purchased another home. So
Sure.
it really isn't the end of the world. You just have to see what your options are, and find somebody who can do it, right? Don't. If you go to your everyday family attorney that did your will, hey, what should you get real estate advice? It's not. You were like, no, I don't know, it's too busy, right? Or your criminal attorney that defended you in your traffic ticket the other day, not the person, right?
It's languages.
Yeah,
it's learning 50 different languages, and I promise you, if you want bank formation and intellectual property and copyright, go to my sister. She's way fucking smarter than me on that. But if you want a street fight, if you want to figure out weird financial puzzles, I'm Rain Man on that. I'm the guy. Don't go to your criminal attorney and beg him for advice about how to stop a sheriff's sale, because he doesn't know. And that's okay. We all have our lanes. You need to learn to stick to them.
right. Absolutely. It's good advice. So for you guys, area that you service, because we have people that are listening from all over, and I'm sure if somebody was like in other parts of the country, you within your network, you could probably refer somebody, just like real estate, right?
Thank God for ecospheres, because otherwise, why would a realtor from Rochester be talking to an attorney from the Jersey Shore?
Right.
We're connected. We all have great networks, and we can always find somebody that can service you, because same thing. We started this with a conversation about judicial foreclosure versus straight foreclosure. I don't know the regulations going on in Virginia or Florida. I had no idea until 2 weeks ago that in a real estate deal involving Florida, they give you a contract close date. And if you don't close on that date, they can walk away with your money and cancel the transaction. Well, it almost jammed up one of my guys here, because here it's a wild ass guess. We think we're closing today, but we have the window to close in the next 10 days. In Florida, they're like, sorry, buddy. So that's why you don't want me helping you deal with an Iowa foreclosure, because I don't know what to do with the cornfields.
Right.
But I'll find somebody that does. The area that I service is Jersey, strictly New Jersey. I don't even touch New York. You guys scare me. Cement shoe threat once, and that was all I needed to hear. So keep me in New Jersey, but I've got offices that cover Monmouth, Middlesex, Burlington, Mercer. I cover about 60% of the state through my 3 offices. And in this wonderful world of Zoom, none of us need to be in the room anymore. We have these conversations. Bankruptcy court's done by Zoom and phone. So if we can do these things through this, our geography's gotten limitless. It's just the bandwidth of our time. Welcome, Abigail from Charlotte. If you need help, I will gladly come down to the Outer Banks and we can chat about it. Go Tar Heels.
Yeah, she's Charlotte's pretty. She's a loan originator, I think. So what else do you want to talk about? We can talk about anything now.
Knock knock jokes. No, that's the fucked up thing, right? You wanted to come on and talk about short sales, and we just talk big picture law. But I'll pivot back to what I promised to talk about. So we've got this house, right? And it's underwater. And the delicate difference between profitable and underwater, you have to do the math. If I can sell a house that's worth 200 for 201, the problem with that is after I take out the 6% for the realtors and the realty transfer fee and the recording fees, the adjustments on taxes and escrows and all that stuff, Well, I'm now 20 grand under. So if the homeowner doesn't have 20,000 to bring to the table,
Right.
well, now they're trapped. So instead of giving me a contract for 201, give me a contract for 199 and let the bank tell me that it's not enough money. Let them counter. Because at 199, just so everybody understands the basic building block of a short sale, the goal of a short sale is the homeowner gets to walk away from that house owing nothing and potentially get some relocation money from the lender in order to move on to the next place. And the VIG from the lender's perspective is, I would rather take 85% of my money than fight with you on a foreclosure for the next 2 to 5 years, or in a bankruptcy for the next 2 to 5 years. So my 199 property, the 6% to the realtors, generally the 6% to the realtors is protected. So as realtors, you should be trying to find these deals, not because they're messy and scary and you don't know how to do them, but because you know that you're going to get your time paid for. The lender will pay you guys. The lender will pay me. The lender will pay the transfer fees, the recording fees. And again, they might throw money at the mortgage company, at the homeowner to leave. And they'll negotiate with the second mortgage, which is really our fun problem with underwater properties, right? They'll pay the second mortgage to go away too. So if you owe 150 grand when you took out that home equity line to build the pool and the salon and the movie theater, and you found out all of those things aren't worth a damn anymore, well, the first mortgage company steps in and says, all right, I'm going to take 180,000. The second mortgage company, they're going to go back to them and say, Bank of America, shame on you for lending these guys this cheap money. Here's $6,000. Go away. And here's the crazy thing. Bank of America says, thanks for the 6 grand. And they write it off. Mm-hmm. That pivots to the next question though. I'm Joe homeowner and they just wrote off $150,000. Holy shit. Am I going to get a 1099 for that?
Right.
I am. But this is where I want everybody in this room to understand and appreciate accountants. Accountants are really nerdy math people and they rock. There is a form called 982. And with a form 982, if you don't own another property, which means, sorry for those with the investment property or the beach house they just lost, but if you own another property and it's insolvent, you're okay. If you don't own another property, you fill out this form and they waive the forgiveness. So you're not punished with 150,000 of earnings from the write-off on your mortgage. You are free to walk away. They want you to start over and start fresh. And at the heart of this, all of that pressure and buildup and bullshit in your head about the financial crush just pushing you down, it is amazing once we get you out from under some of that debt, how you sleep again and how you rebuild. People get past this. You had a bad run, you took a gamble and it didn't work. But if you do this right and you've started to recover, you can own a house again in 2 to 3 years. I tell my bankruptcy clients all the time, 2 years post bankruptcy, I'm getting you qualified for an FHA loan. If you want that house, I'll get you there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the requirements? And I guess you'll address like New Jersey, but I think New York is very much the same. For the homeowner to qualify for a short sale, like let's give them kind of like the criteria behind in their mortgage, like with that.
So the lender is going to dig into your financial history. And for some reason, they also want to know that you have a hardship. The definition of hardship is very, very gray, probably on purpose, but usually they're looking for some documentation. So you bought this house, life was good at the time, there were no doc loans, so whether you had to establish income to get that original house or not, right, who knows, but bygones. Now let's figure out how to get out from under it. My wife had cancer, and because of that, she couldn't work, and we had crushing medical bills, and we had to go through a bankruptcy, and yada, yada, yada. That's easily documentable. Now they're going to look at your bank statements, they're going to look at your pay stubs, going to look at your tax returns for the last year. You're going to show them what your monthly budget looks like now. And you're going to have that very carefully crafted, tight letter. And the number one problem people have with that letter is they used to want to blame the company. So shame on you for giving me so much money.
It's your fault.
And we always look at those letters before anything goes out to the banks. We always sanitize. Our job is to look at it and make sure they will understand what we're trying to present. And when we get a bank statement and there's $50,000 in it and we're trying to do a short sale, that might be a problem. They want to know why you have so much money and why you're not just paying us.
Right.
If you look through your bank statements and every other week there's a trip to the casino, they might have a problem. But I'll tell you what, Jay, I had a client who I got a loan mod for, and we had to make him a self-employed second job as a professional gambler because he was actually making money. So we could demonstrate earnings over the last 6 months, and they qualified that as income because we made profit and loss statements for him. This is why you work with a qualified person. I promise you guys, you can do this on your own. Yeah. If you're really good at paperwork, you don't need me. And a lot of people have done this without the assistance of an attorney. But if you don't have that skill set, please, please, please continue to do your job and do it well. Just hire someone whose job is to do it well. That's why you're going to hire a me.
Right. Absolutely. And we always talk about that. You know, we teach a lot of the designation courses and stuff where it's like, treat your business like a business. What are you really good at? What are your income producing activities, and how can you better benefit your business? It's working with buyers and sellers or past buyers and sellers every single day, not shuffling paperwork, not talking to a bank, not doing anything that number one, you're not really good at or qualified to do, right? Refer it out. Have somebody who really specializes in it and can take care of business like you guys.
You know, Jay, one of those other things, and we can pivot to you and give me some perspective on Rochester and how it's handling all of this. But during this crisis that we both lived through professionally, one of the most important things to understand is people want to better their communities. So when you see that house on your block that is boarded up and has sat there looking like shit for 10 years, that doesn't help your neighbors. That's not a good look for any of us. And our job is to help the communities flourish and come back. And when we have hundreds of empty shells, I live 10 minutes south of Trenton, where there are so many crappy underwater broken houses. It's going to take forever for us to get that community back. Our job is to help you. So how did you feel in Rochester dealing with this whole recession, and how did it affect your business? How did it affect your neighbors and your community?
Well, you know, just to address like what we call the zombie properties, right? The ones that are sitting there vacant. Most of the time, the person leaves the property before any foreclosure process happens, especially, you know, if it's taken almost 5 years on average. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we face. We actually created not me, but our county created a zombie property task force to kind of address the issue and change some of the rules where we can repair properties. You know, like if the roof is bad, the windows are broken, the city or the town can go in and repair that and then add it to the tax roll. And then when it's eventually foreclosed on, whenever that is, they get paid back. But at least, you know, you don't have to drive by this house every day that looks bad. And it's the old, what do they call it? Like the broken window theory, or, you know, where like you're in a neighborhood and it's really nice, but that one window gets broken, then people are taking less pride, and then another window, and then this other house, and then this one gets boarded up, and now we're in a tough situation. I could tell you, I live on a historic street within the city of Rochester that's a dead end. We had 2 properties on our street that were vacant. One was vacant for over 3 years. The other one was vacant over 6 years. And we have a lot of people concerned with that in the neighborhood that formed a committee and wrote letters. And we're talking like a lot of pressure. And even then, it still took some time. And now those properties have since been purchased. The people went in and fixed them up, and now everybody's happy again. So
Yeah.
it's definitely, that's a huge challenge for those of us who are in the judicial states that take forever to kind of do a foreclosure or do something like that. But I during the pandemic, we did see, because we were in New York, we were quarantined, deemed non-essential right in the beginning,
Messy.
and it was tough. I'm fortunate enough, I've been doing video related stuff for over a decade. So I was like, I've been training for this my whole life, man. I'm like, it was just trying to like creatively say, okay, we have to do a final walkthrough, or we have to do an inspection. We have to do this. How can we get this done and be safe? We would never ever have done unaccompanied showings, meaning like the buyer or the seller were there by themselves, until we had to. Like, that was never against the law. It's just wasn't customary to our market, right?
Yep.
Like, no, we don't want the buyer and seller to talk. No, no. Well, guess what? That buyer has to do a final walkthrough. So how do you want to handle that when nobody's supposed to come in contact with each other or keep, be socially distant? So we did have, instances where we'd get an offer accepted contingent on a satisfactory walkthrough within 24 hours.
Yep.
Or we would do buyer and seller would talk, because our state legal counsel would say, we don't want you facilitating that showing in the case that somebody might catch COVID and something might happen. So buyer and seller talk to each other. They set up the showing. The seller would leave the house. The buyer would then go in the house unaccompanied, and they'd have their agent, their realtor, on via video. So I'm still walking through with them. They're walking through with this, and I know that they're not, in the medicine cabinet or in the jewelry. Like, people always say, they're in my house, they're gonna run. No, look, we've vetted these. We wouldn't be working with these buyers if they were thieves, right? They're pre-approved, like, we know them. It's work by referral. So we got through it that way. And then as soon as we started phasing in, our market went like, it was that pent up demand, almost like when they did that $7,500 tax credit, right? Where everybody bought.
Yep.
And then it's just all the people that would have bought ended up buying ahead of time, right? Kind of motivated them to. So we saw all the people that would have bought from March, April, May, when they started opening it up, spike like this. And now we're starting to see it just kind of balance out. Our city of Rochester area is still, because we have double digit cap rates. I mean, it's great for investors. Where I see challenges is years from now. Like, we have investors coming over from Australia, UK, like New York City even. They're like, hey, double digit cap rates, this is great. I'll pay cash. But they're paying cash on something that would have sold a couple years ago for 50. They're, paying 70, 80. They're like, who cares? I can rent it for 1,200. I don't care what I pay for it. And that's going to be long term when they want to cash out, right? When they want to liquidate.
There's your fear. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so and it's crazy with that, right? Because obviously it's all about the perspectives of what's affordable for everybody, and being able to plunk down $500,000 and walk away with 6 or 7 houses in Rochester, and now I'm an absentee landlord.
Right.
Well, what good's that doing if I priced the locals out of their own market, right, made it less affordable? I'll tell you, one of the things that we didn't really talk about, but it was a weird curveball in the last decade here, was the effects of Hurricane Sandy.
Oh, yeah.
In New Jersey, because all of those beach communities got so trashed, fucked up. I haven't said fuck in a while. Let's just get it out there.
Yeah.
Because those communities got so fucked up, everybody had to go rent somewhere else while their house was being repaired. And sometimes that was a year. Sometimes that's been longer. I know people that are still technically out, which is a disaster. Right. And all that did was it flooded the rental market with demand. And now the average rental in New Jersey, in this area, $3,000, $4,000, people don't blink at it. And meanwhile, I'm sitting on the other side of the state. And when I bought my first house, my mortgage was $1,800. When I bought my second house, which was historic 1906 Victorian, man, it was a short sale. I bought it for $220. My mortgage payment's $1,700. Yeah. So my clients out here, they are renting a property for for what I'm owning 2 properties for on the other side of the state.
Right.
And that's our scare, is that when money gets super cheap and people say, fuck it, I'll pay 50 grand over ask, all they're doing is making it harder for the next people to buy, because now they've set a new floor for pricing. And eventually someday, when there is a market correction, then you're going to find me being busy in short sale land again and in loan mod land. But I'm so fearful about loan mods, because if you're at 2.5% for 30 years and you default, what do you think the lender can do for you? They can't go lower. They're already at 2.5.
Right.
You want it to be 0? Do you think it's Europe, where they'll pay you an interest rate in order to buy housing? We don't do that here.
Right.
So future, I hate to be the doom and gloom guy. Like, there are pieces of this future that are lovely and wonderful, and everybody trying to buy their own house, this is a great opportunity when you're doing the long haul. Take advantage of those rates right now, but be conservative with your pennies. I didn't buy that first house at 375 because I was a new attorney, and I went to a community where my 250 got me a 4-bedroom colonial. Right? I commute to work. I commute 35 minutes to my office because I went where the money is for work, but I stayed where the money wasn't for my house, my family.
Right.
But if I'd kept up with the Joneses and bought that 375 house, it didn't keep its value through the 2010s. It wasn't there. Be smart about what you're buying. Be selective. Don't just jump into something because 28 other people have contracts in, and this crack den is rehabilitatable if you put enough elbow grease into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good point there, where, so many, and I don't like the stereotype, but in real estate especially, people are like, flashy car, flashy house, flashy, and I'm like, they're like, dude, you live in a house from 1920. And I'm like, yeah, my money's in the bank. Like, it's in the bank, or it's in more real estate. Like, as a realtor, you should be investing in your own product, right?
Yep. And I don't know, my house is old, and